reflection of how to bring out energy. There are many times when our mind are very weak and we are pulled by the wrong direction. The mind goes to the different direction and does not want to go to the spiritual direction. So we become very lazy, become weak and lazy, and it does not want to stay there in the spiritual life. It does not want to meditate. It does not want to have mindfulness. It does not want to concentrate. So there are times when this arousing of the energy is most important. If you don't do that, then your mind would drift away to the wrong direction. In other words, you won't be anymore in the Eightfold Path. So the arousing of energy, so there are the 8 kinds of contemplation or wise reflection, where you reflect in your mind. If you reflect. The first one is the suffering of birth. If you reflect on the suffering of birth, that we have been reborn according to the Dhamma, again and again and again. So how much more time are we going to be born again and again? So numerous time, innumerous, the Buddha says, many lives has been fair in this birth and dying and birth. And if our bones were to stack together, if the bones were to put them all together, if they do not turn into dust, they will be as huge as Mount Meru. Mount Meru is a spiritual mountain where the spirits are staying there. The Nagas and the Garuka, they are staying there, and above the Mount Meru that's where the 4 king gods are staying, first level of the heaven. So birth is contemplation on the birth, the 10 months in the womb, where you can't move, it's damp and cold inside, where you're squeezed, and even when you're being born, you have to squeeze out of a narrow tube, and your skin is so delicate that it hurts, it burns when you come out, when you take birth that time. We really experience so much pain, and yet we forget about it once we are born. We forget about the pain. The mind tends to forget about a lot of pains because we can't survive if we experience a lot of pain all the time. Even not only being born, it's a lot of pain for the baby, it's a lot of pain for the mother as well. Now, there was this lady who talked to my wife, and she says that her first child was so painful. That time, my wife still... my boy is not out yet. It's not being born yet. And she told my wife, she says that giving birth is like being, the pain that you feel is like being cut 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. It's so painful. And of course, some ladies don't feel pain at all. Some feel a lot of pain. And she says that when she give birth that time, she promised herself that she will never have another baby. But then after the baby was born, after 3 years, she forgot about the pain. And she said, I want to have another one. So she had another one. And then she tell herself when she was giving birth, never to have another one. And finally she have 3. So we tend to forget about the pain, otherwise the mind will not survive. If we accumulate all the pain together, then we will collapse. So we do suffer pain as in the womb, as coming out, which the Buddha says when the mother takes chili, we feel the burn. When it takes hot soup, the baby feels the burn. When it takes cold water, the baby feels the burn. So there's a lot of suffering in the womb. So that is good for contemplation, which the Buddha says that to be born is suffering. To take birth is indeed so much pain. So that would give you a lot of sangvika. A lot of sangvika means a lot of, how would I say it? Yes, sense of urgency that we need to meditate. Don't while away our time when we are born as a human. If you are born as a deva, sometimes you have so much pleasure that you do not want to meditate. You have so much sense enjoyment that the mind will not meditate. Now thinking about jara, the second one, old age, decaying. Now if you think that if you don't meditate when you are young, and you want to meditate when you are old, but when you are really old, then you feel that even sitting 5 minutes, your whole body is full of pain and you can't meditate. People think that they want to meditate when they are old, but old age is a lot of suffering. When you have so much pain, it's hard to meditate. And other thing is when you're old, and what happens if you have this dementia? Dementia means loss of memories. You can't even meditate. So don't wait until you're old. The sicknesses, yes, it's hard to meditate when you're really sick right now. Of course, we say that when you're sick, it is good to meditate. But when a person is really sick, he's so full of frustration and sorrow and fear that they find it very difficult to meditate. Like people who are having cancer, such type of people who are going to die, they find it very, very difficult to meditate because of a lot of fear, a lot of pain. And when they're clinging to a lot of memories, like what I die, what happened to my children, who is going to look after my children. So they do have a lot of distressing thoughts, so it's hard for them to meditate. So therefore, you should contemplate that while your body is strong, while you're not so sickly, you should meditate. You should have a chance to meditate. Now, of course, contemplation of death. So that will be too late to meditate. A lot of time when people who don't meditate and when they're going to die, you tell them to meditate, they can't meditate anymore. Tell them, listen to this chanting, this chanting Buddha's Dhamma. But when they have never learned to chant, where they are not interested in chanting, and when they are dying, no amount of chanting tape can make them concentrate. They'll get more irritated. They'll probably say, I'm going to die, don't disturb me lah. Switch off lah. Because they have not prepared their mind to take interest and joy, just as those who are not prepared their mind in meditation, rising, falling, or watching, feeling, or watching mind, so they could not meditate when they are going to die. So we need to develop strong mindfulness and concentration that when the time comes for us to go, we direct our mind to the objects and it stays there. So once the mind stays in our meditation object, we become peaceful and we'll die in peace. We'll die in peace, and of course, we would have a good rebirth. So if you think of death, life may not be that long. 1 year is so fast. When it was 1990 something, so I can't imagine when people say in the year 2000. In the year 2000, I say, wow, year 2000, going to be a long, long time. But now it's 2008. Time is so fast. Time is a concept, but we measure our life by the time. So it is so fast that if you don't meditate, you'll find that life goes by, pass you by. It's a good form of meditation. I do that a lot. At night when I sleep, I do contemplate about death. I do think that, well, if I die tonight, what am I going to do? Then I would say, well, I better watch my rising falling. Then I'll die peacefully. I die without fear. Now, if you don't hold on to a neutral object, to your meditation object, reality object, then you will have a lot of fear arises in your mind when a person is about to die. Why? Because of the unknown, because you do not know where you are going, so you have a lot of fear. So it's better to anchor on to the rising and falling. Then I say, okay, I better stay with my rising and falling. If I die, at least I die with my rising and falling. So that's a good contemplation to bring out your energy for the spiritual life, for your meditation. And of course, the fifth contemplation is the birth in woeful state. Now what happens if you don't meditate and you take birth in depressing condition, in a suffering world, in a world of beings that experience torture all the time, experience a lot of pain mentally and physically. So if you don't meditate, you are not sure where you are going. So only when you develop wholesome states of mind, then there is no fear. There are times when I look into my mind and I tell myself, even if I will die now, I have no regret because I have led a good life. I have not done anything really unwholesome, harming others or hurting others. I've done a lot of good work. Now, when I contemplate that, then there is no fear of death. So I would probably say that I would be happy to die. True or not? Especially when you experience a lot of pain in old age, probably says that, well, it is good to die. Now, reflection of suffering in the incalculable past life that we have suffered. So we do not know where we come from, but we know, therefore we definitely must have come from somewhere in the past. And there are so many paths. The Buddha says cannot be calculated, so we would have suffered again and again and again. In this family, in that family, born in the rich family, in the poor family, born clever, born stupid, born in the war during the war time, and born in a time when there's no food. We could have been so many births in the past that we have gone through so much suffering, separation from loved ones, poverty, and so forth and so forth. Now, there's a good reflection when you think about the past and reflection of the future. Now, what happened in future life? We don't know where we are going to be, and definitely birth is suffering, isn't it? When the baby comes out from the body, the first thing the baby do is cry. If you don't cry, the doctor will catch hold of two legs and pull you up and give you a tight slap on your backside so you cry. If you don't cry, you die. You have to cry to breathe. Then you start to breathe. Then your lungs start to expand. So the moment you are born, you have to cry. So that's a sign of suffering. Birth is suffering. Now, number 8, suffering in maintaining oneself. And of course, our loved one as well. Life is tough. Especially now in the inflation time. Everything goes up when money becomes so small. You have to work doubly hard. Some of them have to take 2 jobs. So to maintain yourself, even maintain this body, you've got to keep on eating and wash yourself up. Otherwise you'll be very smelly. After eating, you have to go to Jamban. You've got to maintain yourself, this body. And need exercise, otherwise you get too fat. And then a lot of problem comes if you don't exercise. So to make money, to earn money so that you could maintain your house, your car, that's a lot of suffering. Especially those whose karma is not so good. They really have to struggle in this life to make ends meet. They really have to struggle hard to maintain themselves and their loved ones, their children, their education, children education, and so forth. Sometimes when they are sick, then they have to look for money for medicine. And yesterday there was this lady who is so worried. Asked me, what happened when I'm so old and I have no money to live? I say, don't worry so much, you have so much money, you still worry. I know that she has money, but she's worried that when she grows old, she don't have enough money, she got to buy a lot of vitamins. And I say that in America, people take too much vitamin, and when the vitamin don't dissolve, it turns to cancerous. There's a lot of all these vitamin, they take like sweet, and when these don't dissolve in the body, it stays there, then becomes turns into cancerous. So maintaining this body is a lot of pain and suffering. So there are times when I consider this, that what do I do every day? I eat, and then I maintain this body for what? So then I consider, I maintain this body, it's so hard to maintain. So it is more beneficial if I meditate. Then it's worthwhile maintaining this body. Otherwise, it is no purpose. You keep on maintaining this body until you are in 6 feet underground. And what is the purpose? There's no purpose in maintaining this body to keep on living. Now the purpose of maintaining this body so that you be healthy, so that you could meditate. You can make a lot of wholesome mind. You can bring out a lot of wholesome mind so that your journey becomes more easy and fast. And when you have a lot of merits, then less obstruction. There are people who struggle very, very hard in the spiritual life, and they find the progress very slow because of a lot of obstruction to their path, to their holy life. So by cultivating a lot of merits and wholesomeness, then you find your progress becomes very smooth and easy and fast. So I do contemplate quite a lot, what we call this as wise reflection, and it brings out a lot of energy in my mind. That is part of my life where I've been giving 40 over years of services in the Dhamma, spreading and giving Dhamma talks all over the place because of this reflection. There are times when my energy is so weak, I have no energy, and then I use a lot of reflection and brings out my energy again. And so that's how I carry on year after year until, of course, my body becomes too weak, then I can't do it. So otherwise, the wise reflection helps a lot to arouse our wholesome energy in the mind. So any question for tonight on the bringing out arouse the energy when you are lazy, and the mind has no energy in spiritual life. Any question? Clear not? So wise reflection covers under Dhammanupassana, the fourth foundation of mindfulness. Now all this reflection on the Dhamma covers under the mindfulness. We develop the mindfulness based on the Dhamma, Buddha's teaching or reality. So this is called the Dhammanupassana, Kayanupassana, mindfulness of the body, which we covered this in the first lesson. Vedanupassana, mindfulness of the feeling. Chittanupassana, mindfulness of the mind. Dhammanupassana, mindfulness of reality or the Dhamma. So this covers under the contemplation, thinking, but systematic thinking that brings the samadhi, it brings to the calmness of mind. or the right direction to the achievement of wisdom. So that is called Dhammanupassana. Any question? Is it clear or not? Take good care of yourself. Be happy. May all be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.